Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in to my super chat. Thank you. First and foremost, stay safe. God bless you. I'll get to what's taking place in a bit. I know that that most people are not thinking. Most people are not thinking of the SpaceX and NASA launch right now. Maybe they are, but we'll get to that in a second. We'll get to what's going on in a minute. But Luke St. Martin, Eric H526, thank you. SpaceX makes history. Launches NASA astronauts into space from U.S. soil for the first time since 2011. It's kind of interesting, too, in 2020. You probably thought in 2020 that we'd be going into space more often. I mean, the inclination of people 30 years ago, 40 years ago would be, hey, look, by year 2020, we'll be going back and forth, and maybe we'll have a colony on the moon or some kind of, presence someplace, Mars, which is seemingly impossible, but Elon Musk is trying to make it happen. But I'll read you. SpaceX has launched NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken on their historic Demo 2 mission to the International Space Station. The mission is the first time that astronauts have launched from American soil since the final space shuttle flight in 2011. Hurley and Behnken blasted off from Kennedy Space Center's historic Launch Pad 39A, which was also used for the Apollo and Space Shuttle programs, at 3:22 p.m. Eastern Saturday. An attempt on Wednesday was scrubbed due to weather conditions. The launch is the first time a private company, rather than a national government, has sent astronauts into orbit. So this is pretty historic. The reason being, up until very recently, up until today, you'd have to have a government spend the resources to launch astronauts into space. It's not something that a private company could do. But it happened. There were concerns that bad weather would force Saturday's launch. And by the way, I mean, we saw with Challenger, and we've seen with other horrible, tragedies and incidents. This is not a simple task. This is a serious issue. Like, people are risking their lives. Everything has to be perfect. You cannot have, any launch into space has to be perfect. It really does. I mean, it has to be, everything has to be calibrated and perfectly and everything has to work on cue. The launch is the first time a private company rather than a national government has set astronauts into space in orbit. There were concerns that bad weather could force Saturday's launch to be scrubbed, but the mission was able to proceed as planned. President Trump and Vice President Pence, who is chairman of the National Space Council, watched the launch from Kennedy Space Center. Speaking at Kennedy Space Center following the launch, Trump praised America's bold and triumphant return to the stars. It's interesting that you have this beautiful event and then everything taking place this evening. And you got to ask yourself, how many people are engaging in the activities they're engaging in tonight with the thoughts of George Floyd's family in their minds? How many people are thinking of Eric Garner and his family? And you ask yourself, when they're when you see somebody throwing something through the glass, storefront, is that what they're thinking of, the person's family? And the message they're sending only contributes to state power. So here's the thing. If you want, and by the way, any president, any leader that says, okay, this is not right, regardless of how he says it, is going to benefit in the election. This is what Democrats and media don't get. Trump is making a very clear distinction, and Hillary Clinton should have gotten that a fact check, because he never, yet again, they twisted Trump's words. Trump never said he wants all Americans. He wants all Americans to be, targeted by National Guard. He never said that. Ever never said that. He never even ordered or commanded the National Guard to do anything specific. It was a very open-ended statement that oftentimes it could that could be the case, where if that happens in front of a whole bunch of National Guards, soldiers, and they're armed, that's probably what could happen. Very easily could happen. And I don't believe it should happen. I don't believe that you should. I don't believe you should utilize that kind of force, against even against somebody throwing a brick into a window, unless there's somebody within that building. If a life is at stake, then yeah, the National Guard has to take action. If lives are at stake. But President Trump has made a clear distinction, and Democrats have yet again, and media have yet again, blurred the lines between what he said and reality. All of this, when you have Whitmer asking President Trump to prolong the National Guard, and you have Tim Walz, and you have Gavin Newsom, and you have all of these wonderful. I don't understand. Aren't these Democrats the voice of the people? Don't they understand the voice of the people? I don't get it. I thought that Democrats were so good for people that the average citizen understands. I thought the average citizen stands with the Democrats and the media against Trump. And meanwhile, you have governors asking Trump for more federal assistance, like Whitmer. And then on top of this, you spend 2-3 months locking people down for their own benefit. So then you probably have people who are just fed up and upset. So now you have all of this unrest, mainly in Democratic cities, Democratic-run cities, and it's not just a Democrat-Republican thing. It's an American thing. But what happened to George Floyd has to be prevented. Okay, I do believe that Eric Garner and George Floyd were murdered. And there's John Crawford. There's John Crawford, Trayvon Martin. I think that these people were murdered as well. John Crawford was in a Walmart. Within a second, if you watch the video, it's the most horrendous thing. And he wasn't holding, I don't want to get into it just because of YouTube policies, but within 2 seconds, he lost his life. So there are laws that can prevent the bad apples or the people within law enforcement that are bad apples that put their knee or their foot on someone's neck. Agent Pepsi 1! Note these only Dem-controlled areas. That's the issue. It's also in some Republican areas too, but mainly it's Democratic-controlled areas. Mainly Minneapolis, Minnesota is the bastion of liberal politics. Minnesota is a bastion of liberal politics. Minnesota hasn't voted Republican since 1972. Democratic mayor, Democratic governor, 2 Democratic senators, and Amy Klobuchar failed to prosecute the law enforcement official who did this to George Floyd, or the policeman who did this to George Floyd. So you look at Amy Klobuchar. Amy Klobuchar failed to prosecute Derek Chauvin, cop in Floyd death. Failed to prosecute. And then the New York Post and the Daily Beast is two different. After George Floyd's, Klobuchar faces scrutiny over a record. And then the more accurate headline, Amy Klobuchar once failed to prosecute Derek Chauvin, cop in Floyd death. So you ask yourself, and this is, by the way, all of this is a week after Joe Biden said, "You ain't black if you don't vote for me." Does anyone see the horrific irony in this? You think the Democratic Party now is going to go, any chaotic event, any mayhem helps Madam Secretary. Doesn't help Biden. Biden is nowhere to be found. Bill Abrams III, scattered here in Phoenix. Old school dad man. And the people will vote them in again and again. Sad HA. You know, old school dad man, maybe not. You have the lockdown plus this is enough to old school dad man. The lockdown plus this is enough to really put fissures in the cracks in the base of support. And what they do is the world, like, you have cities literally engulfed in flames, like Minneapolis, and they're focusing on Trump's tweets. Like, you can't make this about Trump. You have to make this about your failure in governance. You failed. Democrats in particular failed miserably. Miserably. It is a failure in governance. They failed to protect people. And then they have the audacity to talk about racism when it was President Trump who signed prison reform, and they don't care about that. They only care about tweets and messages and public relations. And when it doesn't suit their narrative, and Joe Biden says something horrendous like the "you ain't" comment, they sweep it under the rug. And then they pontificate and condemn, and it's like, well, the cities that are, just like with the pandemic, the cities that are most affected in the pandemic, 3 to 4 cities, 3 to 4 states. You take New York, New Jersey, Michigan, and you add Illinois, it's well over half of all the lives lost. Why is it that this pandemic affected blue states the most? And why is it that this evening and the past couple of days in Minnesota, you had the wonderful liberal, wonderful forward-thinking liberal governors asking for more state-funded crackdown. You know, Then what do you think? Like, they make such a big deal about Trump's tweets. What do you think happens when the National Guard comes in? What do you think could happen? Not should or will, but what do you think could happen? But everything's public relations. So, I mean, there's no way they could spin this about Trump when you have former Democratic presidential candidate and vice presidential and potential vice presidential pick. Yeah, right. Amy Klobuchar failed to get charges brought against the police officer involved in Floyd's death while serving as a county attorney in 2006. In 2006. So there you go. He's also been cited for violent behavior in the past. And then, in March, Klobuchar admitted to the Washington Post that she didn't have a perfect record as prosecutor. And she wished she had taken individual responsibility. Oh my goodness. Whenever you're caught with your pants down, own it. Say, I take and it's my fault. I accept full blame. I own this. I take responsibility. And I then am alleviated of a certain amount of guilt. And then the media will look at me differently than they would Trumpy. That's what Democrats always do. They get caught with their pants down, literally and figuratively, and they say, well, we take responsibility for this. We take responsibility for this. We take responsibility. Okay, you take responsibility. And let me tell you, don't ever in a million years discuss Trump with any... people are out of their minds because you have social media, you have CNN, MSNBC. We've never seen this before. We have never seen this concerted effort before. Jimbo! Wondering if there are elements that have been waiting for a spark. I mean, very likely. That's a good point. You can't... Organizing these protests is very difficult to just spontaneously happen. But Jimbo! Thank you, Jimbo. It's I don't think any of this spontaneously takes place. But again, like Jimbo and everyone here, thank you, Jimbo. I don't think it's spontaneous. And everyone knows that this is see, you've spent 3 years saying that Trump is a racist and a monster. Based on his tweets. You ignored prison reform. You ignored anything else that he did. And you just focus on his tweets because his tweets promote division. And yet the second he was in office, Madonna said something about the White House that I can't even bring up. So, I mean, the interesting thing with the media and President Trump is they say, oh my God, he could have saved so many lives. Anything he would have said pertaining to the pandemic, nobody would have agreed with. Everyone would have pushed back. You have Eric Swalwell literally saying March 3rd, don't wear masks. Then, of course, that changed. So, Jimbo, yeah, definitely not spontaneous. It's just you look at the news, and this increases state power. When you say if you're a Democrat and you say, well, we have to defeat Trump, and Amy Klobuchar failed to prosecute the very officer that committed this crime, because it was a crime what he did. You cannot stand on someone's neck. You cannot put your boot on someone's neck. It doesn't matter who you are. Especially if you're wearing the badge, you have to uphold a certain, sense of, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. And, most police officers, great people, good people. Most FBI officials, good people, or most FBI agents, good people. Some people are horrendous, like Comey, Strzok, McCabe, Clapper, Brennan, and this officer in Minneapolis. So, you have to ask yourself, if the tables were turned and he was a potential Republican vice president who failed to prosecute the very officer who did this, how do you think media would react? How do you think media would react? That's the issue that I have. And let me tell you something. Nobody knows more. Okay. I've had the unfortunate experience of having to be berated by some very wonderful people that I've known throughout my whole life. Absolutely berated. To where the only thing was hyperbole and anger and maniacal rabid. Like, that's why I did the shtick on Bizarro World Goodman. Which, by the way, I'm going to start doing fact-checking Democratic Party tweets. I'll get that started on Monday, and I'll do 5-minute segments. So keep subscribing to its fact-checking Dem tweets with H.A. Goodman. But, ladies and gentlemen, they're not going with Joe Biden. Let's just bask in the glory of Biden staff donate to group that pays bail in okay. Well, why don't in Minneapolis? Why don't they pay for black-owned businesses that were destroyed? One restaurant, the restaurant owner was interviewed, a black man whose business was completely destroyed in Minneapolis. Notice how everything's public relations, but nothing is really helping the community. How many black-owned businesses have been hurt and harmed and destroyed by this throughout the country? Has anybody asked that? How many black entrepreneurs are hurting now? How much wealth has been taken from the black community because of this? How many African American entrepreneurs, business owners, have been hurt by this, have been hurt by the pandemic? But they don't care about wealth and money. They care about public relations. And if you live by public relations, your political demise will be through public relations. The reason I don't take any of this, I don't take the media seriously, is because the media is like, the media is like a great white shark that swims towards or maybe the shark analogy. It media gravitates towards any story that is most lucrative. Democrats gravitate towards any story that's most lucrative. So when Biden's staff donates to group that pays bail in Minneapolis, it's interesting that they don't give money to entrepreneurs or businesses or groups that help entrepreneurs pick up their, rebuild. Joe Biden we must not allow this pain to destroy us. Oh, gee, thanks, Joe. Just 5 days ago, he said, "You ain't comment." And of course, they covered that up. Oh my God. And then 1 hour ago, Biden condemns. Now they're like, "Oh my God, Trump has outmaneuvered us again." So then Biden condemns riots. It's like, what? He condemns it, and then it's like, and then sends money for the bail. So it's like, okay. Only by standing together will we rise stronger than before. I mean, this is like a Hallmark card. Biden's like a walking Hallmark card where he doesn't even write his own tweets. Bill Abrams! Deja vu repeat of 2016. Pretty much. We're just waiting for Hillary. Look. It's very simple to debate any Democrat. Very simple. On any issue. On any issue at all. Especially the issue of racism. Because whereas Trump might say belligerent things, or might say things that are easily completely manipulated by his political adversaries, the demand for loyalty and allegiance comes from Democrats, and Democrats have failed miserably to earn the votes of the same people they demand allegiance of. And this is horrendous for Democrats. Do you think that, the average American does not blame Trump for this? They look at Amy Klobuchar. They look at this is not happening in, in a red state. This is not happening. Like, it oh my God. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry. This is not happening in the capital of a southern state. This is happening in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Okay. This is happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is happening in the bluest of blue states. And yes, the two operatives who started violence at Trump rallies, yeah. So this is basically, if you type in Joe Biden, you get Biden staff donates to group that pays bail. That's 8 hours ago. And then they said, "Oh my God, the message needs to change. Trump has outmaneuvered us again. He's viewed as the tough on crime person. People are going to vote for him to keep law and order and to keep sanity." Okay, then Biden condemns, protests over George. Okay, so calls for an end to needless destruction. Oh, okay. So you sound like Trump. But you're a nicer, more compassionate version. Then they say Trump is a despot. Takes 2 seconds to debunk that, refute that absurd statement. And then they say Trump is a despot. And then Whitmer asks for for additional federal funding in Michigan for the National Guard. So you've done fantastic. My goodness, the media and Democrats have completely tanked their chances. There was a moment about 2 months ago when I said, okay, if Hillary Clinton comes out of the shadows, she has a chance, because this charade that they're playing with Biden, Clinton is going to be nominee. It's not going to be Biden because they don't have a primary. They don't even have an actual primary. We know this in 2016. DNC lawyers even stated they don't have a primary. They don't have a primary. This is all a charade. I will have made the biggest political call of all time. Hillary Clinton's going to be nominee. But I said to myself, had she come out sooner rather than later, she could have actually, because we have one leader in this country, Trump. You can like him, disagree with him, think he's horrible, think he's great. We have one leader. Democrats are not led by anyone. So what Democrats have done, what the Clinton campaign has done, is they've said, okay, we want to peak towards the end. So we don't want to start campaigning now with Madam Secretary. We'll wait. We'll wait until we have until Democrats have no other choice. We'll wait until we have no other choice. The problem is the only person leading the country is President Trump. For them. The problem for Democrats is that there's only one person at the helm. There's only one person steering the ship. Media and Democrats don't have anyone they're rallying around. They're not rallying around Biden. And look at the crap that we must not allow this pain to destroy us. Oh, thanks, psychologist Biden. Thanks, psychologist Biden. And you'll see, like before he had the mask, then he looked like, Tales from the Crypt robbing a bank. Now he's not going to wear the mask. It's just everything is public relations. The one great thing about Trump is that he doesn't. This is why 63 million plus people will vote for President Trump. Because they're tired of Democrats. They don't even. Look, there are people who don't even like Trump's personality. I think he's hilarious most of the time. I would just say don't get into any dispute with women. That's all I would say. Just any tweet. Just save it for after re-election. No back and forth with any female on Twitter. Don't do it. Now, people could say that's... I don't know what people would say to that. But generally, aside from that, the guy is hilarious. For the most part, because the maniacal reaction from the left is like, it's their reaction is about them. It's not about you or me or Trump or anything else. Their reaction is about them. You give people reasons why you're voting for President Trump, they don't care. And they get angrier and angrier because you're doing your own thing. So, but I mean, you keep people in for 3 months for their own benefit. You're probably seeing some of these people snap. Not most of them, but some of them. Not most, but some of them. So, and again, I think that and what Jimbo is saying, it's not spontaneous. I don't think it's spontaneous, but you have to ask yourself, when you have society being shut down and President Trump says start everything up again. Webby, thank you very much, Webby in Australia, thank you. To my Australia crew, Jimbo and Webby and everyone at Aussie J and everyone at the pub, thank you. One day I'm going to show up, Webby, and be like, where's Webby? Where's Jimbo? Where's Aussie J? And they'll be like, get out, sir. And they'll be like, get out of this pub. Webby, thank you. David. Looks like Super Chat is working to me. David, thank you. Von Kettering, David Von Kettering, thank you. Thank you, David, as always, for watching. Webby, David, thank you. The only person leading the country is President Trump. And again, with this issue, these are local issues. If you have a violent protest in a city, this is a local issue. The mayor messed up. The governor messed up. The state senators could have done something, especially people like Amy Klobuchar. They cannot blame Trump's tweets for this. They can't even make this about Trump. Like, everyone knows this is a failure of the Democratic Party. Everyone knows it is an abject failure, a complete and utter failure. And when Clinton comes in, see, Webby, I'll be like, hey, where's Jimbo and Webby and Aussie J? Like, please leave. Please leave, H.A. Badman. But, oh, here we go. 9 hours ago, you can't defeat bigotry. It only hides. And when leaders give it oxygen, now it's as Donald Trump has done, it comes back roaring back. This is in Minneapolis. We have a moral obligation to stand up, speak out, and hold people accountable. You literally stated that you ain't comment. Oh my God, they have no clue. They have no concept of the machine is going. The machine's in overdrive and it's heating up, and it's gonna break down. You know, Trump gave bigotry oxygen. Well, what did Minneapolis give it? A steak dinner? What did Amy Klobuchar give it? A buffet? I don't. This is unbelievable. Then you have Whitmer. I can't believe Whitmer is like, oh yeah, let's. Thank you, Mr. President. We need more funding to pay for the National Guards people to stay longer than we have money to pay them. So I know Trump is like. These Democratic governors are like it's like a dysfunctional family where the parents like pay for the teenager's car and everything and a car insurance, and the teenagers are don't even say thank you. Whitmer and Waltz and all of these people, when they can't pay the National Guard and they go past a certain time period, like in Michigan, they're going to ask for federal funding. Just like they asked for federal funding with the pandemic. So they go right back to Trump after insulting him every day of their lives. And it's like, you failed to adequately protect your state from the pandemic. That's why 4 Democratic-run machines have over half of the lives lost. You failed to... I mean, Keith Ellison, the former DNC chairman, is the attorney general, who, by the way, had allegations of his own. And that's just yet another example of allegations being completely swept under the rug by Democrats. Completely. I mean, look, everything they stand for is completely crumbling. All of their hyperbole, all of their patently false statements. He worked with Russia. He's a despot. It takes a second of research on Google, a second to refute everything, and they don't want to hear. Jimbo, the lunatics are in charge this. Jimbo, thank you. I think what Trump needs to do is simply wait and not do anything from a federal level. Do absolutely nothing from a federal level. Absolutely nothing. And wait for the governors to literally ask. That's it. Just wait for the governors to ask. That's it. Jimbo, thank you. Just wait for the governors to ask for help. That's all you need to do if you're the president. Wait for the governors to ask for help. And when the governors ask, this is also the thing that like the anarchists and leftists and like the socialists and all the people, like a lot of them don't get. When you engage in violence against the state is now has the incentive to crack down even harder with more brutal force. This is why you don't... This is why. So the National Guard has been extended. And then federal funding comes. Okay, so then they're going against everything they claim to stand for. And then CNN, like, this is what true leadership is. Tim Walz. It's like, how they turn everything. Like Andrew Cuomo is like America's governor. Putting infected people in old age homes. Look, they're going to lose again in November. It's going to be a roller coaster ride, ladies and gentlemen. Hillary Clinton is going to be nominee. Hillary Clinton is going to be nominee. They're going to lose again. When Clinton loses again, she'll write a book. What happened again and again and again and again and again? What happened this time? Not again. What happened this time? By Madam Secretary. But they don't care because what they've done is they've tried to what they have tried to do from day one is they've tried to bully Trump because they feel that he's a bully, and anything was justified because they feel that President Trump is the antithesis of their alleged value system. They allegedly have a value system, but they don't uphold it ever. And if anything, they tear it down when convenient. And they jettison any core principles, whether it's believe, or Russia. It's all a bunch of nonsense. Russia is not our main adversary on the planet. They only say that because they view democratic politics as national security. The DNC is not national security; it's a private entity. And James Clapper had no evidence anything happened. But the mistake that they made, which is why they will lose again, is they didn't run on anything. They don't have a leader. And when they pass the baton to Hillary Clinton, it will be seamless. They will, because she's the only chance they have. Okay, she is the only chance they have, and their whole thing is, well, we want to peak, we want to gain the most momentum we can right before November. The problem is, once Clinton takes the helm and says, okay, Biden, you've done your thing, in August, September, October, November, you have less than, September, October, and then November, you have less than 3 months for the country to make a decision again between Hillary Clinton and Trump, and people will then ask, where has Clinton been this whole time? They won't say, oh, well, Biden was sliding into second base, and then, the ACL tear. Gosh, put me in, coach. I'm ready to play today. Look at me. I can be in center field. They're not going to say, oh, well, Biden was sliding into second. And then, Madam Secretary saved the day. They're going to say, well, wait a second. We're doing this again? Okay. Even that'll be okay, but they'll be like, well, why didn't you lead? Where was the leadership? They're going to ask where the leadership was. That's what they're going to ask. And the only leadership was Trump. The only leader the country has is President Trump. I think he's doing a great job considering you have media, Hollywood, intelligence, corrupt intelligence officials, everybody on the planet. Vector Box News, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for watching since 2016. Thank you. Jimbo! Russia was a convenient strawman. They only seek power. Exactly. Jimbo, thank you. President Obama stated the 80s want their foreign policy back. Jimbo, do you remember? Thank you again, Jimbo, as always. Jimbo, do you remember the Mitt Romney and the debate, President Obama's debate with Romney, where he said the 80s want their foreign policy back? This is why when Clinton becomes nominee again, the belief that they have the absurd nature of everything, like it will be absurd, but this is the theater of the absurd, where you should expect the irrational. If you don't expect, today I told myself the following, ladies and gentlemen. You should tell yourself this also. Jimbo, everyone here, you should tell yourself this. Not only must you expect the irrational and illogical in terms of politics, political events from now until November. If it's not irrational and illogical, there's something wrong. Or that is the nature of what's taking place. The nature of what's taking place is not that this is just the way things are done. American politics now is more embedded or influenced by media than ever before, and yet it isn't, because President Trump is president. He won re-election. But the Democrats have nothing but media. And once they lose again, they'll lose not only the James Clappers of the world, but they'll lose the CNNs and MSNBCs, because you can't spend 8 whole years just spewing contempt for anybody, especially the president. You can't do that, because 2020 is a choice. Either CNN, MSNBC, James Clapper, Brennan, either they win, or President Trump and Trump supporters win. It's either Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Tom Perez and Clinton and Robert De Niro and Hollywood and James Clapper and Comey and Strzok and McCabe. Either they win with Madam Secretary again, or Trump wins. And, everyone, independents, former progressives, Trump supporters, conservatives, the country wins. And the hyperbole and the propaganda and all that nonsense loses. And you also can't engage. If you live by hyperbole, it's not good. You can't base every argument on the most absurd hyperbolic statements. You just can't do that. Exactly, David, exactly. Well, you could be right, Agent Pepsi 1. But if they lose their audience, then they'll slither towards what's more lucrative. Ladies and gentlemen, stay safe. Be safe. God bless you. I would like for Democrats to acknowledge in these violent and destructive events how many black-owned businesses have been destroyed or shut down. They need to acknowledge this, but they never will. Give me your thoughts below. To my super chat, thank you. Stay safe, everybody. I'll be back tomorrow morning, of course. God bless. And ladies and gentlemen, subscribe right now to H.A. Goodman's other channel. I have a great segment on that. So check that out in about right now. Give me your thoughts. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Stay safe.